Sure. Let's start early.
Didn't actually mean to go right at it, but here we are.
Early for once, not late.
Well, late because we're coming on a Friday, but early. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, everyone. We're early. None of you are here. Ha ha! One person's watching. It's me. It's
3
me
minutes.
on my phone.
3 minutes early.
Why don't do we just want to wait, or do we want to start? Like,
I think we just start.
okay, let's start.
Happy Friday! We usually do these on Thursdays, but this week got a little bit away from us, so we're coming on a Friday. And we're going to switch. We've talked about leadership for the last couple weeks, and we're going to switch over and start talking about some sales behaviors and kind of tips and tricks that we've learned along the way that'll help you reach your customers or your potential customers faster, better, more efficiently.
Richie Caniff, by the way. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Richard. I think one of the biggest things is how do you get people to return your phone calls? Because nobody picks up the phone right now if you call. So you leave a message. Do they call you back? Usually not. So how do you get them to return your phone calls? Or if you want to start with a warm-up email, how do you get them engaged with that kind of first interaction? So that's what we're going to talk about today, prospecting. And then we'll go through some other sales behaviors as we go. But I actually posted a little video that Mark did last week just on prospecting and why people don't want to be pitch slapped.
Ron Tight's term, not mine. Ron Tight's term, not mine.
So take a peek at that video. It's about 7 minutes long. Today we'll be here for a half hour, so we'll dive into it a little bit deeper than he could in that video. But just, how do you warm people up? How do you have authentic conversations? How do you, make it so that the person doesn't feel like they're being necessarily sold to off the bat? And for me, that's all about creating some sort of common ground and connection and very evidently showing the reason why you think you can help them. So here we go. How do you want to start?
Well, maybe not with a question and more of a statement, and certainly open to take questions. But the first thing I tell everyone in my sales training programs and any of the organizations that I've been a leader in, and I've been doing sales a very long time, is start by not doing what you don't like being done to you. Mm-hmm. Right? And yet, that is 99% of sales behaviors out there is we send a blasted message on LinkedIn to someone who we've never met before. And in that message is a sales pitch, right? It's the same thing as picking up the phone and cold calling someone you've never talked to before and you have no connection. So if you can just at a high level, just start with what do I not like as a customer? And don't do that, right? I think there's a little scene from one of the Office episodes where Dwight's like, biggest advice you ever gave me is like, don't be an idiot. Changed my life. Well, it's exactly that. Don't do what you don't like happening to you as a potential customer. And you see that on LinkedIn now. And again, you talked about pitch slapped, and that's Ron Tight's term. You see that on LinkedIn, and Ron talks about it so well on LinkedIn. In your inbox every day, it's people trying to sell you something. And then there was this little awareness around you shouldn't do that, and people won't connect with you. So you get a one line that says, I see you are a coaching business owner. Love to connect and learn more about your business. And then you connect with them, and the next one's an automated message selling you something. So you can't show up that way in email. You can't show up that way in social media, and you certainly can't show up on the phone. So that's point number one. And the other thing is, like, leaders in organizations, sales leaders and CMOs and CSOs and EVPs and owners, you got to take some accountability here a little bit. Is we're putting people into sales positions and we're not training them on how to connect with someone before they go and make a call. And we're giving them prospect lists of thousands of phone numbers that they're getting, and we're putting it all into CRM, and we're measuring them on whether they're making the calls or not, or whether they're sending the email or not. Well, if your boss is holding you accountable to volume of work, what are you going to do? You can find the easiest way to blast out
To
1,000
get through the
emails,
volume. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the reality is it's not going to generate the result that they want at the bottom line, which is the customer conversion and a profitable customer conversion.
Right.
And that's why the whole journey in prospecting and sales starts with researching and connecting. But
Very good.
I don't want to talk for half an hour, so maybe you can ask me something.
You could just keep talking.
I could literally fill up the 30 minutes with how to do this
Right.
properly.
So, researching and connecting, do you think...
Hi,
so
Denise. Hi,
it's a
Denise.
matter of-
Sorry.
Hi, Denise.
Denise is here, Jody. Hi, Denise. I can't see you, but I see you on my phone that you're here. Denise, one of the greatest, forget about people. No, don't forget about people because that's more important. But of all the people I've seen sell in this entire world, Denise is one of those people that I point to. And Denise didn't have to prospect, right? Like she didn't have to cold call people. She had to follow up with people that had been in the sales center. But Denise was a master and still is, I'm sure, at the art of inquiry versus advocacy, which is where prospecting starts. It's all about finding out about someone. Denise didn't spend the first 30 seconds when someone walked in the door trying to sell them a home at Fusion Homes. And she sold us ours, by the way, after we had a rough start with someone else, but we won't get into that. But Denise did a good job about finding out about your life and why you were considering moving and what's important to you in the house. She didn't sell you a floor plan. She was trying to find out about you. And as she did that, you connected with her. And that, so glad Denise is here, is the transition for those of you that are in B2B is how do you do that without a person walking into your sales center? Because that's what you want. You want to get them in. How do you show up like a Denise Tari and do that proactively as you reach out to them for the first time? How do you uncover what they're about? How do you figure out what their business initiatives are? How do you acknowledge that so in turn you can say, I'm here to help and here's how? That's work. And business leaders now, what are we doing? We're saying, here's 10,000 prospects, make it rain at 3% and get an average customer of X. We got to reset those behaviors.
Right, so I'm going to play the student here for a second.
Okay.
If you're telling me that I need to genuinely connect with each prospect I have, in
Be
some
like
way,
Denise is what I
be
said.
like Denise,
Yep.
by doing some, if I have to approach them over a phone call or an email, I've got to do some research on who they are, what their company's about, what services they provide, what their mission statement might be or their values, and then I have to link that back to whatever I'm offering as my product or service, right?
Yep.
Now, if I have to do that for my huge list of prospects, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like that's just so much work, right? That I'll get through way less people in a day if I have to spend time researching each one. But what have you found has happened when you actually put in that time?
Well, first of all, it's not as much time as people think. So just to differentiate yourself from everyone out there selling with these behaviors, you don't have to find out 47 things about the customer when you're reaching out the first time. You got to find out a couple about the decision maker, the person you're talking to, and the company. So that doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of time to go to a LinkedIn profile or search a company on Google and go to their corporate website and find out what they care about and what their business initiatives are and who the decision maker is. That literally, I train it, you can do it in less than 5 minutes per prospect. Now, the good news is, and this is where sales leaders who either haven't sold or we've been removed from the position for too long don't understand, is when you give a list of 1,000 prospects, the sales professional goes through them and goes, that's crap. What am I calling them for? They don't fit. What am I calling? What? So they're actually already doing that, but what you're forcing them to do is make the 999.7 calls anyways.
Right.
Well, wouldn't you want them spending their time on the higher percentage conversion people who fit your brand? And so give them that time to do that work and let them work through their prospect funnel and not call the 500 who are out of business and nobody works there anymore, and really learn about the 500 who could be a fit for your brand. But to your point where you were going, in the context of what they want. I use this example a lot in my training with the printing house. When I started there, the business development team would be measured on how many calls they were making and how long the call lasted.
How long could you keep people talking for?
What does that have to do with quality?
Right.
And they were given lists from Dun & Bradstreet and they're saying, call these 1,000 people. And again, volume is important, but the quality is important or just as important. And so what we simply trained the people to do, and they all had to go through, sadly, a certification where I videotaped them and played it back to them, and they had to watch our approach, is we taught them how to go out and figure out what these companies were doing and why that company at the time, the printing house, was a good fit for them. And so they started off finding out, oh, wow, this company's expanding to the West Coast and they've always been in Eastern Canada. Okay, well, think about that from the concept of how they're going to manage their marketing and their print. Well, they probably have a local provider, and now they're going to have to ship print across the country to their one branch in Vancouver. That's going to be costly. Now, how could we help? Well, we've got 70 branches across Canada, and they can still keep their marketing control in Toronto and just send the digital file to our Vancouver branch, and their branch manager in Vancouver can walk across the street and pick it up. Save all that money on shipping and get it 5 minutes later. Those are the things that you need to investigate about your prospect to show where you fit their value equation. Well, we train people, pick up the phone and sell them some printing. And the sales associates are calling and saying, we have print, and the customer's saying, already got it.
I've got
Thank you. But the prospect, if they heard, hey, wait, I know where you're going. I know what challenge you may encounter. Have you thought of this? Here's how we can uniquely help you and save you some money and get you some speed while we do it. Well,
Would you
maybe
say-
get you some speed.
Would you say speed?
Demonstrate speed while we do it.
Speed things up.
Wow.
Would you say that, you need to know going into it that most companies most people you're about to speak with probably already have a provider who does what you do.
Well said.
Right?
Yep.
So it's less about selling your service and more about sharing the story around how it makes their life better, easier, whatever, to go with you versus their current supplier.
And we're kind of drifting ahead to like behavior 2 and 3 in the sales training. No, that's good though, because but to your point, it starts with the research phase, because I'm preparing my conversation to get you on the phone, but every time you're talking, I'm keeping more and more notes to align what we do with your needs. I go, again, poor Denise is probably already off the call, but if she's still on this call, Denise was inquiring about what the customer needed in their life, not about a house.
Right, because they could go to any home builder to buy a house.
Anybody can show you a floor plan, and they're already shopping other people. So Denise was trying to investigate and find out what you needed and match what our company did to support that in your life. And to your point, and what were our differentiators?
Right.
So Denise was very much about, hey, and again, this is what you got to think about when you're proactively prospecting. It was, why are you moving to this town? And where were you from originally? And what did you like about your last home? What would you have had in your last home to make it perfect? And tell me about how you entertain in the summer. And what do winters look like? None of that have to do with floor plans and types of hardwood. That's all coming down the line.
Right.
But what she's trying to do is find out what it is you're trying to accomplish with your life and where we can play a role. And then what she did was do the differentiator.
Yeah, and then she presents a plan of
and
how
advocate.
she
Now you're
implements
advocating,
that.
right? And so the tricky part is, how do you do that before the person trusts you and knows you when you're calling for the first time? And that's kind of the tips and techniques that I like to dive deep on, because now we're getting down to like the selling part of the conversation and not the inquiry part of the conversation.
Right.
And here's the beauty about, and again, I'll dive deeper. We got lots of time left on some tips. Like I literally want to tell you how to do it today. I don't want one of these, like, those videos that last 30 minutes and they don't actually tell you anything that helps you. I saw one on a cleaning product yesterday on like those catchy videos where like,
You watched a 30-minute video on a cleaning product?
yeah, well,
You don't even clean.
it was this group putting cleaning products into their toilet, and so you're waiting for this inevitable explosion, but they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, so you watch the video and clickbait stuff. Anyways, long story. Where was I?
Cleaning product.
Who am I? Where I want to go is give you the tools to do that correctly. And so I want to talk about what that looks like.
Okay. I don't want to skip ahead if you've got an agenda here, but I feel like
I always have
I
an agenda.
recall you telling me about a specific example that happened with one of your clients. It was Titanium Transportation. They're a trucking company that when their salespeople are reaching out, everyone they talk to already has a trucking line that they use, right? But I do recall you telling me about an example of how you taught the person to connect with the solution and how it worked out in their favor. Do you remember that example?
Yeah, you want me to give that one?
Yeah.
Because that's a perfect
I think
example.
that's a good one.
It's like we rehearsed that, but we didn't.
I
Well
know,
done.
and I remember.
Awesome. Yeah, so I was training Titanium Transportation Group, and by the way, they're already friggin' awesome, right? So they're those clients that you go into and you just layer in a different behavior that maybe they weren't using before, and you put it in front of a team that's already great at what they do, and off they go and they generate these results. But yes, there was a great example where one of the gentlemen came and saw me during the break, and he's like, I've been trying to get Costco for like a year and a half to pick up the phone. And we actually use them as an example in the training session. And what I do in my training session is I now, after they've learned the behaviors, I make them go get on the phone and call those prospects. So we take the training and we make it a live opportunity. And then I also make them call me and treat me like a new prospect and leave a voice message.
Ooh, you're cutthroat.
That's a lot of fun. And then we play it in front of the group. And it's great because everybody learns from it. But anyways, long story short, this gentleman was trying to get Costco. And so we were going through this exact theory of, if they won't pick up the phone, what's the message, right? And it's always a similar message, like, we'd really love your business. Here's who we are. We charge this per mile. We really think we're a great provider. But that's not enough to make someone leave who they're with or consider you if you're not the lowest on price. You got to be the lowest on price. That's the one thing you can always win, but it's bad for margins. And only one person can win it. So we were talking about how do you prove that you understand the customer and connect with their needs. And one of the things at Costco was, they certainly were interested in, I can't even remember, I think it was the green technology or it was tracking in and outs through their distribution centers. Anyways, Titanium had two really cool things going for them. One, and if it was the green example, and it may have been, there was multiple in these trainings, they were one of the only companies with over 50 Tesla trucks on the road. And so the voice message was left, hey, we understand that you guys are pushing towards green friendly. We need to let you know that we can support you with that. We're one of the only companies with 50 Tesla trucks on the road. Let's talk a little bit more about that if you can call me back. And if it wasn't that one, it was this one. So bear with me. It's logistics in and out are everything for your distribution centers. We understand that. We have a software technology that allow you to know where our trucks are within 8 meters at all time. So you can plan your teams accordingly and be ready for that shipment. And if it's delayed, you'll know, and you'll know exactly where our drivers are. One of the two, if not both. Well, the gentleman came back after the break and he was like, holy shit, it worked. I have not been able to get these guys on the phone for a year. And that turned into $1 million account.
Now, that's a great example where it's like they didn't even talk about price, but that's a value add, right? They're talking about what value we can bring to you to increase that kind of trust and transaction. So when and we'll get down the road to this, it always, and I love that you're bringing it up because it leads all together, right? But it starts with researching. You want to research in the context of quality, service, and price and what the customer values. And then you need to know how you demonstrate quality, service, and price. And you need to match it as you're asking those questions. So I was on your website and I see that you guys are really behind this green initiative for your stores. How do you manage that with logistics companies that are on the highway with all that gas? Oh, that's a great question. Can't get around that one. Actually, you might be able to with us. Now, if you don't do the research, you can't set it up that way, and you can't understand what the and so here's the I was going to say travesty. That's a big bad statement. Here's the big problem with salespeople today, and it's not with salespeople, it's with sales leadership. Is we're not equipping people with that behavior. And that's the way we want to be sold. I'll give you a perfect example, on the customer side. Because I'm in the coaching business now, and now I want my training online so I can reach more individuals. And Jody and I are so focused on this online training portion now because the corporate business is fine and will continue to grow. But I only have so much capacity to be in front of people so we can reach more people with this online training. Well, guess what I'm getting? Tons of these pitch slaps on LinkedIn saying, we can do lead generation and get you 10,000 leads. And you just heard everything I talked about, so that makes my skin crawl. I don't want 10,000 leads that I'm going to annoy. But if someone reached out to me and said, Mark, I was on your website. I see your background. I saw you wrote a book on servant leadership. I see there's 5 anchors in there, and you're trying to get it to more people. I'm wondering how you're doing that in the online space today. I think I might have a tool that could help you with that. Now that looks completely freaking different. It's the same solution they're trying to sell me. But that is a person who is coming to me knowing what my needs are, or at least showing up. Now, here's the beauty of doing this right. Automatically, if you just do that behavior, just the way you show up in front of a customer is going to put you ahead of everyone else. Mm-hmm.
because we're not used to hearing that. Now, if you do it really well, now you're going to get the call back and now you may be able to close. But just the benefit of showing up differently is going to get you that return call more often than not. And the beauty of that is, as you grow the customers, this is about prospecting. As you grow your customer base, again, back at the printing house as an example, they sold multiple verticals of product, right? And so what would happen is a customer would come and they do all their business cards with a branch and all their black and white copies. And as we taught the general managers and business development associates to better understand the client, they were better able to position more of the verticals that the company could provide. So like, hey, I see that you guys host a charity golf tournament every year. How do you manage your golf signage for that? Well, boy, if you're doing printing on business cards and that's all you know about people, that large format opportunity is never going to show up if you don't get to understand your customer and research. So not only do these behaviors work to get someone on the phone, they work to grow the business. I'm working through a retention program with a client right now, a client that I love. It's the Guelph Chamber of Commerce. They're amazing people. And what we're doing is we're building a retention program based on those exact same behaviors. How do we get to know our members so we can work with them to offer them more of what the chamber could do for them? And if we deliver on that, they should stay with the chamber longer and getting value out of that service. It all comes back to understanding your customer, speaking your customer's language, and gearing all your conversations around that and their business problems, and then how you're a solution. I don't know if it was Terry Reed or Paul Zarnett who was in business development with me at the time at the printing house, and then I'll get away from those examples. But they really wanted to go this focus of everybody who gets on the phone should be an expert in the company's industry that they're calling. Now that's the whole other end of the spectrum. Like, can you imagine trying to figure out, like, how do I talk to doctors at a doctor conference about printing? But the premise was good. Like, hey, you should be an expert in your customer's business before you ever open your mouth. Now, I'm not telling you that in 5 minutes you can become an expert, but at least you can show you cared enough to learn and tell them why you're reaching out and how you can help. Right. I still haven't talked about how you actually do it.
Do you think as a sales leader, if you've got this sales team, and sometimes you've got like a sales team that's fairly entry level, like a bunch of people that just come in to start selling. Right. Do you think as a sales leader you can really trust that your team knows what they should be sharing as that value proposition? Like, I feel like the sales leaders also need to be training their own team on, like, here's what we're about, here's some points you can touch on, here's where you can make connections, here's how you can align their service with ours, because sometimes people aren't going to pick up on that necessarily themselves. Like, not every salesperson is that intuitive.
It's like you're trying to get me fired up on a Friday and I'm supposed to be happy because I don't really know if you did that intentionally, but here we go. Sales leaders, not all, there's great sales leaders out there. The transition and the jump that they have to make from being good at sales to getting promoted is helping other people become good at sales. And what they have to do is they have to do a skill transfer, right? Mm-hmm. It's why Wayne Gretzky, for me, was never a good head coach in the NHL. So he was trying to make everybody Wayne Gretzky, and he couldn't figure out why they weren't Wayne Gretzky, because he understood the game that well. Mm-hmm. He understood where the puck was going, not where it has been, and he figured everybody had that mentality. But what you got to do is you got to get underneath it and say, okay, what are the skills that I perform? And how do I make that crystal clear for my team? How do I train them? And how do I keep following up on them? What we do with salespeople, it's like, oh, you want a sales job? Here you go. Here's a phone. Here's a list.
Yeah, and you should want to do that because overall it's going to improve your sales numbers, which makes you look better as a sales leader.
Yeah, but it's easier to fire someone because they're not hitting their numbers. And it's not your problem. I guess. I spoke about it this morning on another conference about mental health in the workplace. The reason we have crappy leaders is because it's easy for a leader to be crappy because there's no accountability to them. Mm-hmm. They just fire someone and move on. The harder work is setting people up for success in how to do their job. And so where I'm going, and I'm going to get off the soapbox because I don't want to tend negative, but what do? Lawyers got to go to law school. They got to pass the bar, right? Doctors, years and years and years of education in university and exams and certification, you can be a doctor. Engineer, same thing, then you get the ring, right? Mm-hmm. Leaders, where you're going to support 90% of the workforce, just be good at your day job, and then we'll promote you. Mm-hmm. but we don't close the gap. So I don't blame the poor sales leader. I blame the person who's promoted them and not given them the tools to succeed so they can influence everyone below them. The amount of people I see in senior executive sales positions who have never picked up a friggin' phone and have never been near a customer, it blows my mind. And by the way, that's just, and I'm going to stop on my rant because I know you're trying to get me to stop. That's okay. If I'm a CEO and owner and I'm not a salesperson, that is okay for you not to know. But you got to provide the resource to set your team up for success. So if it's not you, you got to invest in someone else, like maybe a third-party trainer, or someone who can teach your sales leader to do that. You can't just yell at the numbers at the P&L and then wonder why all your people are quitting. I'm done. Rant over.
So they should bring you in for your sales behavior.
Honestly, and now here's the pitch. That's the shit I do. Pardon. We almost got through without me swearing this week. But that's what I love to do. And whether it's me or someone else, all you have to do is bring it in once. Put the behaviors, the process, the training in place, and then it has legacy, right? And the thing that blows my mind is like there are drafters in home building companies that have more certification than the people in front of the customer spending $1 million. Like what? Like why wouldn't you invest in that development? Oh, you got to go and you got to learn Ontario Building Code Part 9. But are you good at talking with people? Okay, go generate 99% of our revenue. And I'm using an example from every industry. I'm not picking on home builders. It exists everywhere. It existed in retail when I was there. I was lucky. I worked for a great manager, Andre Giroux, who said, "Bitsy pas, viens ici. Come here, le bloke. I got to talk to you." And he would coach me and say, like, you can't, like, here's how you do it. And let me teach you the product knowledge. And this is why you can't. But boy, like salespeople are the lifeline of organizations.
So let's get to the how.
Yes, because we've got 6 minutes
We've got
left.
6 minutes. So
Okay.
how are we going to prospect most effectively so people will actually want to talk to you?
Yeah, simple tip. This is, and just starting. If you get to it, you'll practice it. First thing you need is this thing called a pen. They're back from the old days and paper. And you want to put it beside you. And then if you're going to call a prospect and it's on your list and you look at the name, if you have a name as a decision maker, the first thing you do is you type in that name and you go to LinkedIn. You do not send them a message on LinkedIn saying, "I'm with this company, I've got some stuff for you." Stop. You're going to LinkedIn to learn a little bit about them. And LinkedIn is a professional network where people are sharing things about themselves that you want to know. So that is fair game in a conversation with someone. And jot down a couple notes about their careers and what they do today, what their responsibility in that company is that you're trying to acquire their business. Now you can speak to them in the concept of what they're trying to accomplish. Then I want you to go to that corporate LinkedIn page of the company you're trying to acquire. See what they talk about. But Mark, some of the LinkedIn pages don't have any information or a corporate page. That's okay. There's this thing called Google. I want you to go to Google and I want you to put in the company name and see what comes up. And I want you to look for their business initiatives or their mission. And if you can connect to either why they do what they do or what they're doing and keep some bullet notes, that is what you're going to introduce in your first call or your voicemail or your email. I'll give you an example of John Sleeman. Everyone,
Excuse me.
John Sleeman of Sleeman Beer, right? So if you're in the Guelph area, you'll know of Spring Mill Distillery. That's at the Meadowworks complex when I was the VP of Sales and Client Service and IT at Fusion. We were trying to get somebody in that old heritage building that would add value for the people who were going to buy units. We wanted something cool in that business with history and that was Guelphish, right? Like local business. So I went around to all the individual microbreweries. We wanted to do a brew pub restaurant. Spoke to some amazing people at Royal City and Wellington and some great business owners in town. Weren't interested in doing food and beverage. And then we came across Sleeman. And I'm like, Sleeman, they're massive. I'd never met John Sleeman. Doing my thing that I'm teaching you now. LinkedIn, no John Sleeman. Okay, well, who's the head of public? No, nobody there. Okay, I'm going to go search Sleeman. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff and their corporate website, but boy, there's no one to get a hold of. Like, how do I find John Sleeman or at least someone who's got John's ear? There will come a time when you've exhausted all of that you can still find somewhere to go. And guess where I went? I went to the info section of the Leeman website because I couldn't creep John anywhere. And I typed in what we were doing. But I typed it in from the perspective of, hey, we want to continue this great local feel in Guelph. Now, the concept at that time was genuine Guelph. I can't think of a better brand to be associated with than one of Canada's biggest beers in Leeman Beer, and a family that has so much history rooted in Guelph. We'd love to talk to you about that. Nick Porcelato, who's John Leeman's 18-year government and industry guy, reaches out to me on Twitter, of all places, and we start dialoguing. John eventually comes to the building. The conversation is still based around not the metalworks, it's the project and what Leeman could be involved with. And here's the beauty. It didn't even end up being a Leeman thing. It ended up being John's new launch into spirits. All of that came from me not picking up the phone and calling the first person there and saying, we have a commercial space. Do you want to lease it? No, I went back and I looked at the Leeman family history. And I talked about in my intro, I see your history with, spirits. And 50 years ago, the family actually losing their license. And John, I saw what you did to start the family recipe from your aunt. And I put in all the story about the family business and why I thought this might be a good place to continue that. That took work. Now, I got nothing out of that deal. It wasn't my property. That was my job. And my old boss, Lee, and John are now partners. Lee's an investor in that project. And there's this cool spring mill distillery on site at that project. Never happens if they're just one name on the list and I just picked up the phone and tried to call someone and said, do you want to rent this commercial space? Never happens.
So you've got your pen and your paper.
Got your pen and your paper, and you're taking notes.
Documenting as you go.
Individual
sure you
company. You don't need a 47-line story. That will grow through your sales relationship of asking the right questions. But you do need to know what they're about and how you think you can help with that quickly.
Okay, question.
I'm sorry, and I just want to finish that point, because what I don't want people to miss is half the battle isn't about the facts and whether they resonate or not. Half the battle is you did the work. The person on the other end is going, this person did a little investing. I should take their call. They know a little bit about me. They're not pitch slapping me. It's so easy to show up well in sales today because everybody's doing it wrong. Everybody's doing it the way we hate. So just do it the way you want to be approached. Like someone actually cares about you. Like they invested time in you. And they're not just trying to take your money. They want to add value to your life or your business project. You do that. I'm not telling you everyone's going to pick up the phone because most of us screen everybody now. But if you do that in a quality manner in your voicemails, you're going to get more callbacks than those that you don't. Sorry. And by the way, it's friggin' worked everywhere. Like, I would never tell you to do these things if they didn't work. It's worked in every company where I've been responsible for sales. We have increased budget, increased vertical penetration of products, grown profitability, broken records. Because I've had great teams, by the way. It's not because I've done it. I've had willing teams. But because we show up to our customers like business partners, not someone out there to pitch slap them. Rant done.
What happened with that titanium example on that group at Titanium?
Well, yeah, you got the account. You got the phone call back and you got the account. This was all in the middle of the training session. Mm-hmm. Titanium had a 90% sales increase quarter over quarter. Now, Rob Thomas, Jay, and the team at Titanium created that result. Not Mark Pettipaw. They already had systems and processes in place. But that simple shift of, hey, wait, we can stand out over our competition by knowing more about our customers certainly contributed to that result. I am not one of those people who's going to tell you, I'm going to 10x your business. No, I'm going to give you some tools that if you put in the effort, you can have some success. And anyone who promises you 10x or 30x, anyways,
What's the next sales behavior you talk about?
So the first one's connecting and researching, right? And so I think we've kind of tackled that today. Mm-hmm. And then the second one's clarifying needs and determining needs. So we've actually done, the second one is when you actually have someone engaged and now you're finding out more. What are their needs? So you can match your products and services because you may from your research figured, we can do this for them. But as you have more dialogue, now you can complement the suite and services.
So we'll talk about that next week?
Yeah, because people want to talk about, because we're out of time, I know. People want to talk about retention. Here's the beauty of retention. People will stay with you longer if they're more connected to what you do. And what does that mean? You sell them more things that they need to help their business advance. And how do you figure that out? You research them and you continually evolve in your knowledge as your customer continues to grow. If you look at them once when you get the first sale and you never look at them again, how do you know what's changed in their world where you can help them? But that's next week.
The other thing I want to talk about, we're not going to talk about it now, but at some point, the other thing I want to talk about is what if you do all this work and someone's still not getting back to you? What's your process for follow-up?
Or go to their house.
How many times do you follow up? How long do you leave it in between? And when do you know just to move on from a prospect that it's not going to be
Are you
what you
trying?
thought? So we can talk about that
Do you want me to give all my training
another
today?
day. No, we're going to talk about
We
it
do
another
have to pay
day.
bills. Like we have a mortgage and stuff. Like I could just give.
We do have to.
I will talk about that on another day. There's a process for
yeah.
that and knowing when
I
you stop.
used to work in sales for quite a while too, so I have a few
Where was that?
opinions on that matter.
What was that?
I was in network marketing, which is the hardest sell out there.
Well, and I didn't even view Stella and Dot as selling. That how bad, and Stella and Dot is selling, right? But
Totally.
you got so much out of the relationship part of that business that I didn't
Right,
even
but
jump to
I
sales.
learned a ton about sales in that.
You
I
did.
was doing that job. So
Some of the ladies you work with, my gosh, they should be chief sales officers in most of the organizations across North America. Seriously.
I've moved on from that role, but I did learn a lot about sales along the way, and they have kind of a pretty set system on follow-up. So follow-up would be a good one to talk about at some point too.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us on this sunny Friday. We hope you have a great weekend. And yeah, we'll be back next week.
Do I get to go skate outdoors and drink beer now?
That's all we do these days. Bye.